Destiny's crossroads.
Recently, I was lucky enough to go hands-on with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and although my playtime was largely dominated by combat encounters, this small slice left a lasting impression on me in regards to how events in the final game will play out. It, alongside the latest trailer, has all but confirmed suspicions that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is not going to go how we might all expect. A fascinating change in events during my demo, coupled with clues and patterns from Final Fantasy VII Remake, leads me to believe we could all be in for a shocking twist of fate for everyone's favourite flower girl. Here's 7 reasons why we think you'll be able to save Aerith during Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. But before we dive into Rebirth, let's first set the scene for what happened in Remake. The first chapter in this trilogy initially presented itself as a retelling, but by the end had veered onto its own extremely meta path. Throughout Final Fantasy VII Remake, Cloud and his friends frequently encountered the Whispers, hooded spectres that Red 13 described as the arbiters of fate. Their sole purpose is to ensure that destiny plays out according to plan, effectively keeping the events of the original Final Fantasy VII timeline on track. That would of course see villain Sephiroth defeated, but not before he takes out Aerith in the process. But the Whispers are now gone, slain by Cloud at the end of Remake. The future and the past is now very uncertain, something that was perfectly illustrated in Remake with the arrival of the very much still alive Zack Fair.
Come and get it!
It seems now that anything can happen. The very end of Remake even dubs what's to come as the unknown journey. So how does this all affect Rebirth? Despite the removal of Destiny's manipulators, at this point it appears things are still on track. Trailers suggest that Rebirth is sticking to the broad events of the original game. We've seen the same locations being visited, the same characters being met, and the familiar path being trodden. But no one is naive enough to believe Square Enix won't have a surprise or two lined up. And our prediction is that, this time around, Aerith will avoid her doomed fate. The events of Rebirth begins as the party leave Midgar and will end in the Forgotten Capital. Creative director Tetsuya Nomura recently confirmed this to the PlayStation blog, noting that the Forgotten Capital is where the greatest fate of Final Fantasy VII awaits you. He is, of course, talking about the moment where Aerith is killed by Sephiroth. Producer Yoshinori Kitase also noted in a statement that we know fans are dying to see one scene in particular, all but confirming that Aerith's death scene will be a part of Rebirth. Or will it? In that same statement, Kitase noted that there will be a rapid pace of major twists and turns. And so, much like the shocking finale of Remake, could Rebirth end in a huge twist? And could Aerith survive Sephiroth's attack? It's logical to assume Square Enix will follow the path it laid down with Remake, but what evidence do we have beyond the baseless assumptions that Nomura and his team are looking to disrupt our expectations? Well, there is another disruptor, who perhaps presents a more convincing argument. In Remake, it's more than heavily suggested that Sephiroth knows the events of the original Final Fantasy VII. Basically, he knows he's doomed to be stopped by Cloud. To arrange his own victory, he needs to change the timeline. We saw him attempt this previously when he tried to kill Barrett, but the Whispers stepped in to keep destiny in order. And so, that's why Sephiroth coaxed Cloud and the party to challenge fate. With the Whispers defeated, Sephiroth is now free to walk a new path and avoid his own defeat. So how could this lead to Aerith surviving? Well, Sephiroth knows that Aerith's death is a huge catalyst for Cloud and the group to begin their planet-saving journey. And so by not killing Aerith, Sephiroth can avoid Cloud going on a path of vengeance. That may sound counterintuitive, but there's an even more compelling reason for him to keep Aerith alive. In her final moments, Aerith calls on Holy, the white magic that prevents Sephiroth's meteor from destroying the planet. So perhaps, if Aerith lives, Sephiroth could manipulate her into using Holy for his own nefarious purposes. In Remake, it's not just Sephiroth who's hinted to know the events of the original story though. It's suggested that Aerith does too.
But this isn't the way it's supposed to be. There's no greater threat to the planet than him.
She's presumably not going to be very happy with that version of events and wants to do everything she can to survive. It may be that Rebirth is a battle between heroes and villains who already know the path of destiny, with each trying to do everything they can to twist a new fate into something that benefits them. Aerith knows her sacrifice eventually leads to Sephiroth's defeat, and so it seems likely she'll need to formulate a new plan in which she can both survive and ensure his demise. Perhaps we'll be in for a story in which Aerith calls Sephiroth's bluff, coaxing him into a false sense of security by staying alive, then thwarting his plans in a way that adds a brand new story layer to this reimagined version of Final Fantasy VII. It may be that Square doesn't subvert expectations and instead sticks to classic events, but even if Aerith does die in Rebirth, she could simultaneously survive. Thanks to the destruction of the Whispers, a second, altered timeline was created in which Aerith's old boyfriend Zack Fair survived. It seems like we've seen moments from this new reality in Rebirth's trailer, such as this scene where Avalanche are captured by Shinra in Midgar, something we know that didn't happen during Remake. Kitase confirmed to IGN that there will be a new episode with Zack that will contain even more of him than the remake. It stands to reason then that this altered timeline will play a major part in the events of Rebirth. With Zack alive, Cloud won't be able to assume his false identity and fall down the soldier rabbit hole. And so perhaps it's Zack, not Cloud, who joins Avalanche in this reality. And from there, perhaps this version of the party's journey completely avoids Aerith's tragic fate. Maybe all it took was for Zack to survive and to secure a more hopeful future for Midgard's Flower Girl. We know that we're going to see two timelines play out in Rebirth. It makes sense that one will feature more radical changes than the other. Perhaps we'll see two fates for Aerith, and a story that makes it clear which path of destiny is the most important for Midgard's Flower Girl to tread. Perhaps Zack's timeline will be the one with the most changes, but my hands-on showed that the regular remake timeline will continue to undergo several key alterations. When I arrived at Junon, the classic bottom swell boss that attacks Priscilla on the beach has been reimagined. In Rebirth, the boss, now renamed Terror of the Deep, is actually attacking Yuffie instead. This location is now where Cloud and the party will meet the Materia Thief for the first time, which is entirely different to how Yuffie is recruited in the original game. If the events at Junon are now different, then there's every chance that the events at the Forgotten Capital will be too. When discussing the Final Fantasy VII Remake project, it's important to remember that the name Remake has a double meaning. It doesn't just refer to Square Enix remaking an old game for a modern console. It also symbolises the character choosing to remake their own destinies. The Final Fantasy VII timeline has literally been remade, and so it should be assumed that the name Rebirth will also represent multiple concepts. In an interview with IGN, Kitase explained that the name was thought of as the next iteration that also kind of encapsulated this sentiment of reimagining or recreating. That explains the development side of the title then, but what about the in-game meaning? A resurrection could also be considered a rebirth. Perhaps then, just like Barrett, Aerith can be resurrected. During his final confrontation with Cloud in Remake, Sephiroth delivers a cryptic message.
7 seconds till the end. Time enough for you, perhaps. But what will you do with it? Let's see.
It's a confusing monologue, but it could well be another piece of evidence that points towards Sephiroth knowing his future. During the Forgotten Capital events of the original game, it takes exactly 7 seconds for Sephiroth to fall from the sky and impale Aerith with his sword. And so it seems like Sephiroth is taunting Cloud. He'll just have 7 seconds to intervene and save Aerith. Will Cloud ever learn what Sephiroth meant? Will he have time to formulate a plan to prevent Aerith's death? Do those 7 seconds definitely refer to this climactic moment? I guess we'll have to wait till Rebirth to find out. And those are 7 reasons why we believe Aerith could survive in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Do you have any theories of your own? Have you spotted even more evidence in the trailer that we've missed? Let us know in the comments. And for more on Aerith and Final Fantasy VII, why not check out our documentary about the resurrection of Aerith, including all the urban myths and the fans that have been desperately trying to bring Aerith back to life for the last 25 years.
Magic sure is weird.
A Mako spring.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, but if we keep using Mako to power our homes, springs like this will disappear, right?
Naturally formed materia. And look at the size of it. Astounding.
I've always wondered, how does materia let you cast spells exactly?
How did you ever get to be a soldier? To put it simply, the knowledge of the ancients is sealed within each orb. That knowledge not only connects us to the planet, it allows us to tap into her power. That's how we can use magic. Or so they say.
Really? Magic sure is weird.
I know someone who'd be livid to hear you call it weird, or magic for that matter. I can just imagine what he'd say. It's an affront to science.
Who?
Hojo from Research and Development. His predecessor was a great man, but him, he is anything but. We should press on.
And if you like that video and you want to see more Final Fantasy VII, why not check out our documentary about the resurrection of Aerith, featuring all the urban myths about her resurrection and the fans that have been trying to bring her back since 1997.
I did not think for a second I was going to be impressed by the PlayStation Portal, Sony's small screen remote play solution for the PS5. With remote play already working great on tablets and phones, and controller solutions like the Backbone designed specifically for playing console games remotely, the Portal seems like a solution to a problem no one had. Why spend $200 on a single-purpose device when there are much cheaper solutions already available? And yet, after spending time with the PlayStation Portal, I gotta say, this thing rules. That's not to say I wouldn't change anything about it. In fact, it has some missing features that make me scratch my head, but initial skepticism has been replaced by enthusiasm. First off, when it comes to the just use your phone argument against the Portal, that disintegrates once you see the screen. Now, it's not OLED, which is a bummer, but it's an extremely high quality 8-inch LCD screen. That is much bigger than my iPhone 13 Pro Max, and it really looks fantastic. Colors are extremely vivid and absolutely pop. There's no smearing or ghosting whatsoever, and when things are in motion, they look exactly like you'd expect them to look. The viewing angle too is quite nice. You can freely tilt it in whatever way is most comfortable while you're using it without losing color or detail. Everything just looks crisp and alive on the screen, and I really do prefer it over using remote play on my phone. On the opposite extreme, if you use remote play on a full-size tablet, yes, you get a bigger screen. That might be the best way to strike the perfect balance between portability and screen real estate, but you still have to supply a controller, which, given the fact that you clearly own a PS5, probably not that big of a deal. However, the advantage of the Portal over a tablet is you get the good-sized screen with a controller built right into an all-in-one solution, so you can hold the Portal and play your games in any position you like. Because it's effectively a DualSense with the middle stretched and turned into a screen, the Portal is instantly familiar to feel and use. It even has the DualSense features like vibration and resistive triggers. The only feature it's missing is the touchpad, but a quick tap of the screen brings up a virtual replacement. But the functionality of every part of the traditional DualSense controller is right there, literally at your fingertips. The Portal comes in at roughly 1.17 pounds. For comparison, my iPhone 13 Pro Max with Backbone weighs in at just under 1 pound. I was actually surprised at that result when I popped it on the scale. I seriously thought it was less than that because it feels very light and comfortable without coming off as cheap, and I never got tired of holding it. I used it sitting on my couch, laying in bed, even at the local coffee shop, and I never felt like I needed to put it down and take a break. Since it is so much lighter than I was anticipating and the screen is really bright, I wasn't expecting much from the battery life. If the notoriously short-lived DualSense is anything to go by, it was never going to be amazing. I played Final Fantasy VII Remake, Astro's Playroom, and Spider-Man 2, swapping between them over the course of my battery test without ever shutting down the portal, and I got 4.5 hours of use with the brightness turned to 100% and the volume at around 50%. The Nintendo Switch OLED gets roughly the same battery life under ideal conditions, and the portal easily beats the Steam Deck, which often struggles to hit 2 hours. However, both of those devices are doing much heavier lifting than the portal, which isn't doing any major graphical processing. Personally, I feel like that's plenty of time before having to plug it into the USB-C port for power. No doubt that number could be greatly increased by turning the brightness down and the controller features like vibration and trigger reactions off. As has been pointed out many times, the PlayStation Portal shortens to PSP, which is an initialism shared by Sony's first dedicated handheld gaming device that came out way back in 2005. Old. But the Portal is definitely not a shot across Nintendo's bow, because the Portal only plays games via remote play, so it's not like you can play it on the go. There's no version with a cellular connection, or without also owning a PlayStation 5. There is literally nothing else it can do. That seems like a bit of a bummer given the $200 price tag. I'd have liked to at least be able to watch Netflix or YouTube on the Portal, but all media functions are disabled on Sony Remote Play. The PlayStation Portal will only play games and let you navigate PS5's menus, so without a PS5 at the ready, the Portal is a paperweight. It's also completely bonkers that this thing doesn't have Bluetooth. If you want to listen to your games without everybody in the room hearing them along with you, you're going to need either a wired headset, which sucks, it's 2023, or you'll need one of Sony's proprietary PlayStation Link compatible headsets or earbuds, which also sucks. Add to the suckiness the fact that those earbuds and headset aren't even out yet. Hey, but don't worry. The earbuds come out December 6th. Oh wait, but do worry, because they cost $200 on their own. Wait, actually, the next Pulse headset is $149, so that's a little bit of a savings. But oh no, they don't come out until the end of February 2024. What the hell, Sony? At least this problem has an expiration date, unless you don't intend to buy the Sony headphones. But it's gonna be frustrating for early adopters. I really cannot understand why Sony didn't include Bluetooth. If it's a cost-saving measure, it's a bizarre one, given there's still some kind of chip in there broadcasting Sony's sound tech, so I don't think that's the case. Plus, Bluetooth is super cheap, and it's in everything. My shoe has Bluetooth. It's made all the more frustrating by the fact that the single worst part of the Portal is its built-in speakers. They sound flaccid and underpowered with little in the way of audio range. I do appreciate they are stereo speakers, and in games that use stereo effects, it is actually noticeable. But otherwise, the sound is really underwhelming, and at full volume, it sounds blown out. My phone's speaker sounds better, and hey, I can pair my phone to my Bluetooth headset. Setting up the Portal is extremely easy. You just need to make sure your PS5 is set up for remote play first, then you power on the Portal, connect to Wi-Fi, wait for it to download the update and restart, then wait for it to apply the update and restart again, and then follow the prompts to pair it to your PlayStation 5. Okay, yes, that sounds like a hassle now that I say it all out loud, but it's not like you can mess it up, and it's a process you only need to do once. The other thing you need to do is make sure your PlayStation 5 is in rest mode and not completely powered down, or else it won't turn on and connect when you pick up your Portal. The first time I connected, it took a few moments to find my PlayStation 5, but when it did work, it worked flawlessly. It's so cool to be able to use my PS5 in what is otherwise a completely normal way, but on a bright, beautiful, portable screen. The first game I played was, of course, Marvel's Spider-Man 2, and my initial worry was, some of the text would probably be too small to read, but the 8-inch screen proved to be just big enough to see everything, even the smaller text. I hadn't actually gotten around to playing Spider-Man 2 yet, and it turned out to be an awesome showcase for the Portal. The smaller screen obviously minimizes the scale of the earliest boss battle, but for being able to play while lying down on my couch, I'll take that trade. I also played NHL 23 and found it incredibly fun on the small screen as well. Didn't have any issues with text or menus, although a little hard to see some of the action around the net on that 8-inch screen. If you've used remote play before, you know the single biggest bottleneck in performance is the quality of your Wi-Fi signal. I have a decent Wi-Fi router, yes, it's the one provided by my ISP, okay, and never once did the signal drop out while using the portal in my living room. However, in both Spider-Man and NHL, there was a noticeable drop in frame rate in moments where the action got really fast, although it was very brief. Occasionally, I'd spot the resolution drop down for a tick or two, but again, that was only during the fastest and most heated parts of the games. The only time the stream really struggled was when I was downloading a game. I wanted to test the portal's battery life against Astro's Playroom's awesome DualSense controller features and went to re-add it to my library. Since my PS5 is connected wirelessly, the added bandwidth of a game download brought remote play to its knees, even losing connection once or twice before picking it back up again. Once the download was completed, everything returned to normal. Moving away from the router to my bedroom, where I have less than stellar Wi-Fi coverage, the problem got pretty bad. It was no fault of the portal, it was wholly because I haven't set up enough access points to give it a good enough signal. At this point, I had switched to playing Final Fantasy VII Remake exclusively, and there were occasions when the streaming buffer was working so hard, the resolution drop made text completely unreadable. The moral of the story is that if you're planning on getting a PlayStation Portal, you should make sure your household Wi-Fi coverage is in top form anywhere you're going to want to play it. Sony also recommends you have a 15 megabits per second or greater connection for best results, but the minimum requirement is 5 megabits per second. After establishing the portal works great in most of my house, I packed it up and took it to Dunkin' Donuts, which as a New Englander, I am required by law to visit at least once per month. I'd hoped to test its performance on public Wi-Fi, but this was a total bust. Dunkin', like many chains, airports, libraries, hotels, and other locations offering guest Wi-Fi, requires you to visit a website and acknowledge its terms of service before allowing you onto their network. And the portal has no web browser to allow such an interaction. That is a huge bummer because pretty much any place you'd want to use it outside your house is going to require that initial login page. This seems like something that could be handled in a future update, but for now, you are out of luck. However, one of the locally owned coffee shops in my town has free Wi-Fi with no such requirements, so I took the portal in for a cup of coffee to see if it worked as advertised. Getting on their Wi-Fi was easy, but connecting to my console back home took long enough that I was worried it wasn't going to work. But once it did, it worked incredibly well. In fact, it worked almost as well as it does at my house when both devices are on the same network. This was the turning point for me, where I went from, well, this is kind of neat, to this is actually rad. There I was playing Final Fantasy VII Remake from the PS5 in my house in a cafe across town, and it was nearly indistinguishable from the experience at home. Again, that's something that can certainly be done on your phone or tablet, and those are also able to get past that login screen, but none of them feel as good to hold and play as the Portal. The PlayStation Portal is the most surprising device I've ever come away from loving after going in loaded with skepticism. It's such a better experience than using your phone with a slap-on controller, and it works so much better than I was anticipating. I really love the freedom it gives me to play my PS5 from anywhere with decent Wi-Fi coverage, especially when the rest of my family was using the TV to, somewhat ironically, play Nintendo Switch. Bearing in mind that it's in no way a standalone device and 100% requires a PlayStation 5 to function at all, the biggest things keeping this Portal from being a truly amazing device are its current lack of a way to access Wi-Fi that requires a web browser to log in, and its lack of Bluetooth support for audio. For now, though, it is a great device that represents the best current solution for PlayStation Remote Play, and if it weren't for those two baffling caveats, I'd call this a must-own device for every PS5 owner who enjoys playing games on handheld or has to compete for the household TV. be. For more handheld goodness, check out our review of the Steam Deck OLED, and for everything else, keep it right here on IGN.
There are tons of remakes being made these days, but what does that word really mean? Well, lots of things. While the recent Resident Evil remakes have been mostly faithful modernizations of the original, Final Fantasy VII Remake is more like a complete reinvention. It boldly swaps the traditional turn-based combat of the 1997 original with exciting real-time action, and expands the first act of the classic story into a full game by adding dozens of hours of character development and world building. And also a bit too much filler. It may not be a perfect reunion, but with or without nostalgia in play, this is still a great JRPG in its own right. Final Fantasy VII Remake zooms in on the first hours of the original game, which takes place in the city of Midgar. Here, Cloud Strife and his freedom-fighting allies battle the evil Shinra Corporation that run it, and that conflict has been stretched into a campaign that took me more than 33 hours to complete. It has spectacular style, both in and out of its epic cutscenes, and in its truly phenomenal soundtrack. As a big fan of the original's turn-based battles, I was thrilled to find that Remake's revamped combat still proved to be endlessly engaging. Flashy basic attacks charge up things called ATB bars, which then let you use your team's unique weapon abilities, equipable spells, and items from the comfort of a slow-motion menu. It's extremely different, but there's still a tension to every choice that truly reminded me of the original's frantic decision-making moments. And you can't just mash square. Part of that is because filling up an enemy's stagger gauge will make them take extra damage for a time. We've seen that in games before, but the clever twist here is that every enemy staggers in a different way. Learning those differences kept combat fresh the whole way through. That variety is a big part of why its epic multi-phase boss fights are so incredible too. These powerful enemies push you to learn tricky patterns, and the way they seamlessly blend in cinematics always put a smile on my face. You have a massive amount of flexibility in your party management thanks to role-defining materia orbs and upgradable weapons. Materia can be slotted into any character's equipment to give them spells and buffs. That's important since your active team of 3 is entirely determined by where you are in the story. I just wish I didn't have to keep reslotting my best materia every time my party shifted.
Thanks anyway.
Weapon upgrading also had me digging through menus too much, but it's such a cool new system that I didn't mind. New weapons are rare, but they upgrade as you level to keep them relevant. I found myself frequently switching weapons as my materia builds and party changed, but even Cloud's signature starting weapon, the Buster Sword, remained a solid option. Rather poetically, it ended up being my favorite weapon by the end.
Like that? You'll make sure you never forget my face.
The visual variety of Midgar's levels is fairly impressive, ranging from dirty slums to industrial Shinra facilities. That said, the level design itself is serviceable but simplistic. The combat is always a blast, and that keeps momentum high, but there's not much else to think about beyond some simple puzzles and lightly hidden items. That makes the areas you're asked to retread for side quests a repetitive drag. Generally speaking though, I love that this brief section of a much larger RPG has been fleshed out with real character development and a more robust story.
Okay, I get it. Mind letting me breathe?
Depends.
I loved learning more about Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge, and seeing lively neighborhoods full of people. One excellent new mission has you wrestling with the decision to turn off the giant sun lamps that provide light to Midgar's slums to progress, giving more direct weight to your group's actions. What I didn't love, however, was when this remake clearly decided it just needed more stuff to pad out its length, regardless of quality. The dullest of these by far are when Cloud is asked to do odd jobs around Midgar's slums. Suddenly, you're faced with bottom-of-the-barrel JRPG tropes that belittle the high-stakes events around them. A shopkeeper literally asks you to kill some rats. Then there's a little girl who can't find her kitty cats. Seriously?
They said that a scary man was chasing them.
There are plenty more, and sure, you could skip these side quests, but that'll mean you miss out on extremely valuable items and unlocks, and can even influence later scenes in subtle ways.
What exactly is it you're trying to say, Merc?
You need people who can follow orders, too.
This pointless filler isn't always reserved to just side quests either. A handful of the new main missions similarly push you through events that feel totally irrelevant. They can be amusing diversions, but if you could somehow skip a few of them entirely, you probably wouldn't even notice. Square Enix has generally done a great job of making this originally brief Midgar section feel like a bigger story, and showing things like Cloud's cold, Merc heart warm over time gives vital character development to a part that didn't have much in 1997. But it also raises tons of unanswered questions. Some of those are clear nods for longtime fans that will be incomprehensible to anyone else. But a lot of the totally new stuff is convoluted and confusing regardless. The way its characters wantonly spout new nonsense it just expects you to roll with towards the end of the story can only be described as some Kingdom Hearts BS. And I say that as a Kingdom Hearts fan. Ultimately, I would have liked a more satisfying conclusion to this story, and a better jumping off point for its eventual sequel. Thankfully, reaching the credits does unlock a hard mode and a chapter select, allowing you to easily return to any area with your current equipment. Filler or not, I do plan on diving back in to tie up some loose ends, or just throw some darts. Final Fantasy VII Remake's combat is top-notch, and its enemy variety kept me constantly entertained. Seeing this snippet of a story fleshed out with the previously hidden humanity behind Midgar filled me with pure joy. The dull RPG filler and convoluted new plot points that accompany that did stop my ear-to-ear grin from being constant, but never long enough to kill the mood completely. This remake still delivered on letting me relive part of a classic in stupendous fashion, while also standing as a great RPG all its own. Be sure to head over to IGN.com and read our full written review of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Also be sure to check out some of the new cutscenes compared to the original, or watch the first 15 minutes of gameplay. And for everything else, keep it right here on IGN.
Can you believe it? I don't think anyone saw this coming!
Sony had a curious 2023. The PlayStation 5 had blockbuster console exclusives, such as the superb Spider-Man 2 and the flashy Final Fantasy 16. It also saw the release of the PlayStation VR 2, an impressive piece of virtual reality tech, but one barely supported by a games library. Long-term PlayStation man and current CEO Jim Ryan also stepped down, with his full-time replacement yet to be named. So, what will 2024 have in store? There are plenty of exciting games to look forward to, as well as a good deal of mystery. Let's take a look at what we know is coming next year, as well as theorize as best as we can about what surprises might be in store.
The only catch.
What are you doing in here?
You're a killer.
Nothing like 24 hours of emotional turmoil to wash those winter blues away. January may well signal the start of a new year, but Sony is doing its best to make us question exactly what year it is with yet another The Last of Us re-release. The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered is the PS5 version of the critically acclaimed sequel that comes with graphical improvements, previously cut lost levels, and a whole new roguelike mode titled No Return. It's not necessarily a huge splash to kick the year off with, but there's set to be enough new stuff in there for The Last of Us fans to enjoy when it arrives on January 19th.
The world's ending. At least, that's what everyone's saying.
From remaster to remake/reimagining, now with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. The second installment of Square Enix's Return to Cloud's adventure is scheduled to land on February 29th. Taking us outside the walls of Midgar, Rebirth promises another helping of stellar RPG action that's set to honour the original's beloved cast of characters and unique locations, yet tease us with the different turns it may take on that journey. Just before that though, is console exclusive Helldivers 2, which is coming on February 8th. A third-person squad-based shooter, cooperation will be key as you look to blast away monstrous alien threats games from every corner of the galaxy. Pacific Drive is set to skid onto our screens on February 22nd. An atmospheric survival game with a twist, it's a first-person driving game that takes you around an eerie Pacific Northwest as you aim to dodge the metal monsters that lurk in its woods and escape for good. Rise of the Ronin swiftly follows a bumper February when it launches on March 22nd. Team Ninja brings its Ninja Gaiden and Neo action heritage to this stylish sword-slashing RPG that takes place during one of the darkest parts of Japanese history.
A fleeting moment can feel like a lifetime for those caught in its deadly rhythm.
And believe it or not, that's actually all of the PlayStation console exclusives we have release dates locked in for. But that's not to say there aren't others coming in 2024. Among them is the eagerly anticipated Silent Hill 2 remake. Being developed by Bloober Team, hopefully it won't be too long until we see Pyramid Head and the gang again soon. Then there's Stellar Blade, which was meant to have released in 2023. Seemingly taking cues from the likes of Nier Automata and Bayonetta, this Korean open-world action RPG is set to offer ferociously fast combat in a sci-fi setting. Concord is a PS5 console exclusive from Sony's newly acquired Firewalk Studios. Very little is known about this multiplayer shooter apart from a colourful teaser shown off in the summer, but with Bungie pedigree at the studio, it's one to definitely keep on your radar. Ubisoft's Foam Stars is exclusive to both PS4 and PS5 and looks set to give Sony their very own rival to Splatoon. The team-based bubble shooter looks set to be a good time, with enough interesting tweaks to make it stand out from its squid-like cousin. And if the colourful chaos of Foam Stars looks like too much fun to you, then why not check out the excruciating looking Baby Steps? I mean that in the best way possible. From the creative minds behind indie darlings Ape Out and Getting Over It, the physics-based gameplay looks hilariously frustrating as we help one man in a romper suit across a terrain desperate to trip him up at every step. Of course, there will also be a steady stream of non-exclusive games scheduled to head the PS5's way in 2024 as well. These include Dragon's Dogma 2, Star Wars Outlaws, Black Myth Wukong, Tekken 8, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, and Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2, to name but a few. We certainly won't be running out of things to play next year. After Insomniac brightened our October with the wonderful Spider-Man 2, many of us were hoping that 2024 would give us our first proper look at the studio's upcoming Wolverine game. Sadly, Logan's PS5 adventure has already been partially spoiled by an extensive hacking scheme, which also revealed Insomniac's major Marvel plans for the next decade. It suggests that Wolverine may be further away than we originally thought. But if plans haven't been totally destroyed by the theft of so much data, there's a chance we may see the developer's next game in its Spider-Verse, reportedly featuring Venom as the protagonist sometime next year. But what about the games we aren't so sure about? Ones that haven't leaked, or ones that don't have a release date currently penciled in? How about the ones yet to even be revealed by the studios making them? Let's have some fun, take a look into the crystal ball, and speculate like wild.
It's time for you to hit the road and start a new journey.
We know Death Stranding 2, or just DS2 as it is currently named, is on the way. Will it come out in 2024? Who knows? What we do know is that Hideo Kojima's attention will be split between the post-apocalyptic sequel and his freshly revealed OD. But seeing as DS2 got a much more developed trailer a year prior to the Xbox exclusive, we can infer that it could be out ahead of it. However long until DS2, it certainly won't be as long a wait as fans of the 1994 shooter Marathon have endured. Bungie's first team up with Sony since their $3.7 billion acquisition is to revive Marathon's long-dormant sci-fi gunplay in the form of the currently fashionable PvP extraction shooter. Apart from knowing it's set in the year 2850 and a glimpse at the beautifully designed trailer hinting at strong art direction, we really don't know much else. It would be a huge surprise to see it in 2024, but we can dream.
You want to know about us? Seems like everyone does these days.
Haven Studios, recently founded by Jade Raymond, announced their first game, Fair Games, in the summer of 2023. A cooperative heist shooter, it's a PS5 console exclusive that would be surprised to see released next year. Then there's the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic remake, which has suffered a tumultuous couple of years by all accounts. We'd be shocked beyond belief if this emerged next year, if indeed at all if rumours are to be believed, but we can always close our eyes, use the Force, and will it onto our screens. Who knows, it might work. But what are all the Sony first-party studios up to, I hear you ask? Well, there's a long list of mystery projects to dig through in that regard. We don't necessarily expect any of these developers to release new games in 2024, but we can expect some reveals dotted throughout the year. Let's take a quick look. We know that Naughty Dog has now cancelled their multiplayer The Last of Us game, meaning something else must be in the pipeline. Will we see a new single-player entry into either The Last of Us or Uncharted series, or maybe something completely new? Sony Santa Monica treated fans to the free God of War Ragnarok Valhalla DLC at the very end of 2023, but what else does it have cooking up? It's been over 3 years since Ghost of Tsushima took us to feudal Japan. Will Sucker Punch return for a sequel, or perhaps treat us to something new again? What have Returnal developer Housemarque got up their arcade shooter sleeves next? What next for Days Gone developer Sony Bend? Will Bluepoint Games reveal another fantastic remake or surprise us with an original project? What wonderfully creative place will the recently reorganised Media Molecule take us to? Will Astrobot finally be released from his shiny white-walled PS5 prison and be allowed to play with the rest of us? Give that little guy another platformer, please. On one hand, it's frustrating to not know exactly what we'll be playing for most of 2024, but on the other hand, it's exciting, and I for one can't wait to find out what adventures these PlayStation studios and more have waiting for us next. With the launch of the PSVR 2, a new slimmed-down PS5 model, the PlayStation Portal, the DualSense Edge controller, and the PlayStation Access controller, it was certainly a busy tech-filled 12 months for Sony. That means we wouldn't be surprised if 2024 was a quieter year when it comes to new hardware, but that won't stop us from speculating. The PlayStation 4 Slim and Pro were released 3 years after the launch of the original PS4. We've just hit that point in the PS5's lifetime, and have received the equivalent of the former of those redesigned consoles. That means it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility to see a PS5 Pro pop up sometime next year. Although we might not have seen the current model pushed to its limits just yet, we all know we watched that GTA 6 trailer and thought to ourselves, Rockstar's gonna make my PS5 sound like a jet engine, isn't it? With Rockstar's latest slated for a 2025 release, perhaps a souped up PlayStation 5 hitting store shelves towards the end of 2024 would make for logical timing. Apart from that, it's all pure guesswork. What new tech innovation or fresh piece of hardware would you like to see from Sony? I think a controller with a battery charge that lasts more than an hour or two would be fantastic. Let us know in the comments what you think, as well as what games you're most excited about playing on PlayStation in 2024.
The world's ending. At least, that's what everyone's saying.
The sky, I don't like it.
Ready to fire, sir.
Welcome to the New World Order. Fire!
Just close your eyes and listen. Tell me you can't hear that. Her rallying cry.
Planet runs out of energy. It and everything on it dies.
We can overcome our fate.
Am I the same as these monsters? Am I even human?
Okay, we're looking for Sephiroth. Think you can find him?
Oh, Sephiroth, you say? So you heeded the call too, did you?
What are you talking about?
As you can see, your brothers down there are having a little get-together.
They're our best chance of finding Sephiroth.
Yeah, I ask because I suspect there's soldiers suffering from cellular degradation.
Do not be deceived. You know the truth. Trust in me.
Sephiroth!
Come on!
On me.
Excuse me. Could you look after my friend? Just for a bit.
creatures, set only to appear when the planet is in grave danger.
Who dares disturb my slumber?
It's upon us. The reunion. When worlds merge. I'm waiting, Cloud.
Who's ready for something electric?
Better to die fighting than to live in fear. The truth is out there.
Surprise.
Buster Sword here.
Stand for what's right, or fall for any fight. I'll make sure everyone makes it home. Checkmate.
Charged and ready.
You can't escape yourself.
Wanna fly? Now you see me. Lights out. Howdy.
We're a team.
This is only the beginning.
So much power. It's like a fantasy. A sword like this, now that will really help me cut the power.
Almost an entire year after we last saw Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, we finally have a brand new trailer for the second chapter in the remake trilogy. The big closing number for Summer Game Fest gave us a huge look at the story, gameplay, and locations from beyond the walls of Midgar, and there's plenty for fans to recognise, alongside some unexpected surprises. We've studied the entire trailer and compared its scenes against the original game, and these are the 7 major details that you need to know. Let's start at the end with the trailer's big finale. We see the classic scene of young Tifa approaching Sephiroth in the Nibelheim reactor, where she tries to kill him in vengeance for her father's murder and the burning of the town. Just like in the original, Sephiroth cuts Tifa down. New for Rebirth though is Sephiroth's voiceover.
You know that I killed her. So, who is she?
This links back to the first trailer for Rebirth, which featured a fraught conversation between Cloud and Tifa.
I saw you lying there. I figured it was too late.
Wait, what are you implying? That I died? That I'm some kind of imposter?
So, is Tifa actually dead? Possibly. We know that the remake trilogy is all about changing the original story, and that would be a fun twist considering that we're all expecting Cloud to be the imposter. However, it seems more likely that this is a tactic from Sephiroth to manipulate Cloud and make him distrustful of his comrades. Sephiroth will eventually force Cloud to hand over the black materia, so perhaps this sowing of doubt is all in aid of weakening him ahead of that big moment. The trailer opens on the surprising image of Shinra's guards loading the unconscious, or perhaps even dead, bodies of Avalanche into helicopters. A huge chunk of Midgar lies in flaming ruins around them, and the initial impression is that the team has once again been captured by Shinra. But we know that the group escaped Midgar at the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake, so what gives? Well, we can see that only Barrett, Tifa, Red 13 and Aerith have been captured. So where is Cloud? This scene could well be from the new timeline established at the end of Remake, where Zack survived his battle with Shinra. With Zack alive, it may be that Cloud never joined Barrett's team, and without Cloud, the group may well have failed to stop Sephiroth at the end of the game. It seems likely that the Zack timeline will play a significant role in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and this is our first hint at that.
Whatever happens, protect your honor. As a soldier! Come and get it!
We know that Cloud and the group definitely escaped Midgar, because the majority of this trailer shows them travelling across a world with much more variety than that seen within the walls of the Steel City. Fans of the original game will recognise many places in this trailer. There's Bugenhagen's Planetarium in Cosmo Canyon, the Mithril Mine, the cargo ship, the Inner Calm, and the Nibelheim reactor. There's also shots of what appear to be the Mako pipeline that runs up to Mount Coral. And with all those stalactites, could this be the Northern Crater? We'll also be paying a visit to Junon, and you can see the High Wind right here, moored above the town's iconic cannon. Before all that though, we'll be stopping by the Chocobo farm, as teased in the post-credits of Remake's intermission DLC.
Ah, what is it with these damn birds?
Sorry about that.
No need to apologize, man.
Speaking of chocobos, we'll be able to use them as mounts this time around. Now we're outside of Midgar, we'll be exploring what look like much larger scale environments, and so the added speed of a chocobo will come in handy. This HUD command makes it look like we can call upon them at any time while in the more open regions. While riding them, the contextual chocobo HUD also shows that the big birds can scent and scour, suggesting that they can be used for scouting. Perhaps there's a treasure hunting system or some kind of bounty tracking side activity. The big question, of course, is will there be chocobo breeding? Please Square, don't make us go through all of that again. Early in the trailer, we hear Tifa ask Aerith,
What's Cloud been doing these past 5 years? Where's he been?
And you're asking me this?
This is gonna sound crazy, but as far as I know, Cloud was never in Nibelheim 5 years ago.
In the final hours of Remake, we were given the first indication that Cloud isn't who he thinks he is when a soldier in the Shinra building recognized him.
Cloud? Huh? You're Cloud, right? Holy shit! It's cool, bro. We went through training together.
It looks like Rebirth will further explore Cloud's fractured memory and expand upon Tifa's perspective. We know from the original game that Cloud was at Nibelheim 5 years ago, but Tifa didn't recognize him because he was a Shinra guard wearing a helmet, not the soldier he thinks he was. What wasn't in the original game, however, was this scene in which Cloud appears as a robed Sephiroth clone, taking part in the Genova reunion ritual. Could this be Cloud's fate in the new timeline where Zack survives? This trailer finally confirms that, after being just a guest party member in Final Fantasy VII Remake, Red 13 will be a fully playable character in Rebirth.
I am that which you see before you, nothing more. I'd appreciate it if we simply left it at that.
He's joined by Yuffie, who returns from the intermission DLC to create a full party of 6. There's still no sign of Kate Sith, Sid or Vincent, so let's hope that they'll be revealed later rather than held back for the third game. While the fantastic combat from Remake remains, we can see it's had a few tweaks since we last saw it. Combo moves from the DLC have been fully integrated into the system, and we can see several flashy attacks, such as this one where Aerith launches Tifa through a magical dome. There's also a new icon on the battle HUD, a series of 5 horizontal bars, but it's not yet clear what new system they are linked to. We may be missing Kate Sith, Sid and Vincent, but there are some other fun and less fun familiar faces in this trailer.
Feast your eyes on the Turks' latest and greatest, Elena.
She may be new, but she's still a Turk.
We meet the remake version of Elena, the youngest member of the Turks, in what is clearly the encounter from the Mithril Mine. And later on, we see the grotesque form of Genova Birth, which now seems to hang from the ceiling of the cargo ship like some kind of cancerous barnacle. As with the first game in the remake trilogy, we'll also be seeing a range of new bosses. Here we see Barrett and Red 13 fighting some form of giant rock golem, potentially down in the Mithril Mine. The lack of Cloud in this fight suggests that there will be story sequences in which the party splits up and travels separate paths too.
Well now, think we woke it up.
Angered it, more like.
And those are the 7 major details that you need to know from the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth trailer. Did you spot any other cool details?
Just look at it all. It's so green. Even after everything we've done to it, it's still going strong.
It may look that way, but in reality, it's barely hanging on.
For more, check out the full FF7 Rebirth trailer, and for everything else, stick with IGN.
is so much to tell. Where should I even start? With all that we saw, what we heard, what we felt, this planet of ours, destiny, our part in it. Best to start at the beginning, perhaps. Midgar, the city of Mako, ruled by the Shinra Electric Power Company, who drained the planet of its very essence, the life stream, and processed it for industry as Mako. Our world was dying, and so few could hear her cries for mercy. Those who could rose up in her defense. The anti-Shinra rebels, Avalanche. Among them, Cloud Strife, an ex-soldier hired by the Resistance to destroy Reactor 1. In Sector 8, amidst the aftermath of the attack, Cloud met a flower seller named Aerith. She offered him a yellow blossom. One said to symbolize reunion. And thus was destiny set in motion. With Reactor 1 gone, Avalanche set their sights on Mako Reactor 5. Unfortunately, they were playing right into Shinra's hands. The company was able to draw the wool over the people's eyes. And in the end, destroyed Sector 7, killing thousands and laying the blame at Avalanche's feet. Though dear friends were lost, Avalanche had no time to grieve. Aerith had struck a deal with Shinra, who took her into custody. With her capture, Shinra's obsession was within reach. The fabled Promised Land. For Aerith was the last of the Cetra, the ancient stewards of the planet, and only she could guide them to paradise. To save her, the team infiltrated the Shinra building, the company's beating heart. It was here that I, another prisoner, joined their story and assisted them in freeing Aerith. Yet during our flight, we came face to face with a man thought dead. The vaunted war hero, Sephiroth. Before he could be stopped, Cloud's foe fled with the corpse of Genova, the cataclysm from the stars and the catalyst of our plight. Eventually, we too made good our escape. Pursuing troopers defeated, we raced toward Midgar's edge.
So, und damit herzlich willkommen zum offiziellen Reaction von State of Play. Wir machen natürlich meine geile Facecam an. Ich hoffe, euch allen geht's wunderbar gut. Ich bin so gespannt. Die Demo sollte dann nach der Präsentation verfügbar sein. Die Kamera muss ein bisschen höher. So. Genau, die State of Play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Ich bin so gehypt. So gehypt, so gehypt. Startet gleich. Dann machen wir auch auf Vollbild natürlich, ne? Ist ja klar. Let's go, rein da. Mein Multi-Stream-Chat ist broke. Ja, klar. Sieben, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
What happened to this place?
It was Sephiroth.
He wants to finish what he started and rule over the planet.
We have to help them.
You coming?
Way ahead of ya!
Let's get to work.
I will reclaim our world.
皆さんこんにちは。スクエアエニックスの北瀬義則です。私がシリーズプロデューサーを務めるファイナルファンタジー7の最新作ファイナルファンタジー7リバースがついに2月29日に発売いたします。本作のストーリーは主人公クラウドとその仲間たちが
Ich starte schon meine PS5, weil die Demo gleich verfügbar sein wird. Die Demo zum Downloaden.
世界へと足を踏み出すところから物語が始まります。今回のステートオブプレイではこのゲームの魅力を凝縮した最新のトレーラーをはじめ特別なゲーム紹介映像をご用意しています。また重要なお知らせがありますのでぜひ番組の最後までお付き合いください。それではどうぞ。
Cloud, bring me the black materia.
Oh.
The beginning of the end.
Das ist der verwünschte Tempel.
A watershed moment for all mankind.
Hey kids, sorry we're late.
Das heißt, es geht bis zur schwarzen Materia. Schau mal, das ist viel.
You're going to pay.
Oh, er schon wieder.
Now, who wants to be the first lucky lady?
Hey, boss! Your guests are here!
At long last, the knave returns.
I refuse to be upstaged!
Oh, er schon wieder.
Second time, my friend!
Good, Cloud. Very good. Fill your hollow heart with rage.
I'm back now, Aerith. I'm back.
Was? Nein.
We ask that you retrieve it. The black materia, key to our oblivion. Please. It alone can liberate us from this endless dream.
Passing through. You.
Tifa! Whew! Hey guys!
They're getting some sun too, huh?
Yeah.
Well, Red? How do we look?
Huh? You should get yourself a reading!
It's gotta be hiding some ginormous materia! Woohoo!
Oh, Cosmo Canyon. Nibelheim.
Whoa! Hold this thing over right now!
You said that Sephiroth is your foe. I have a history with him.
You wouldn't believe what he can do.
Neue Minigames?
us understand. You'll need a way home. So when you're ready, I'll be here.
An emissary from Wutai is here, sent by Viceroy Saru.
With all this goddamn blood on my hands, how could I ever hold my daughter again?
Those we hate, those we love, those we fear. Genova would become anyone to fool her prey.
Don't do this!
But I'm no fool.
Sephiroth! Hey!
No, not you.
Wow.
Take it. This isn't about me, though. It's about saving the world. And you.
The reunion, when spite and sorrow are harvested to feed the planet.
No!
What the f...
皆さんこんにちは。ファイナルファンタジー7リバースディレクターの
Da sterben auf jeden Fall sehr viele. Oh
トレーラー
Gott.
はいかがでしたでしょうか。ここからは本作がどのようなゲームなのか、私から皆様にご紹介していきたいと思います。
Oh. Oh, ich hab Gänsehaut.
I'm waiting, Cloud.
In Final Fantasy VII Remake, Cloud and his companions triumph over destiny. Leaving the city of Midgar behind, they step out into an unfamiliar wilderness. It is here that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth begins. The stage upon which this ragtag band story unfolds is both vast and varied. The world is made up of multiple regions, all seamlessly interconnected.
Geil.
The Grasslands. Located due south of Midgar, this is where Cloud and the gang resume their adventure. The Junon region, where a metropolis by the same name overlooks the ocean, a symbol of Shinra's military might. The Karel region. The resort town of Costa del Sol adorns its northern shore, while the Gold Saucer stands as a gilded oasis above the Dust Bowl far to the south.
Alter.
The Gingaga region.
Gongaga.
Pay tribute to Zack by exploring his hometown, or visit what remains of the local Mako reactor. The Cosmo Canyon region.
Oh, Cosmo Canyon. Oh.
Become one with the planet as you return to Red 13's roots. The Nibel region. Take a trip down memory lane with Cloud and Tifa, or stop by Shinra Manor, where Vincent rests in peace. Your adventure will even extend to the high seas. There's more to do than simply walk around, however. First, let's look at world intel. Assisting Chadley with his research will deepen his understanding of the world, allowing him to develop new materia. This research takes many forms, such as wrangling chocobos, or playing with the Mooglets at their mog stools. You may also come across sanctuaries brimming with knowledge of divine entities, or lairs inhabited by fearsome, unique foes. Chadley will also enlist your help in researching mysterious artifacts known as proto-relics. Each investigation is its own side story, featuring a colorful cast of characters, exciting new minigames, and ferocious creatures. Are you up for the challenge? And once you recover all the proto-relics scattered throughout the world, there's no telling what new developments might be in store. Next, let's talk about odd jobs. These quests offer a deep dive into the regions of the world and the crazy characters who inhabit them. As a merc, Cloud will accept work from people he meets in his travels and team up with his pals to solve their troubles. By helping those in need, he will also strengthen the bonds between him and his comrades.
Lol.
Each one of these odd jobs boasts a unique side story. Some, like Johnny's questline, borrow aspects from the original FF7, while others highlight content exclusive to Rebirth. You'll find all sorts of jobs the world over. And don't worry if you leave some for later. Story progression won't affect your side hustle. You can always go back to tie up loose ends. And this freedom to experience the story how you want is one of Rebirth's greatest strengths. While some mini-games are tied to world intel and odd jobs, many are not. For example, popular ones from the Gold Saucer, such as 3D Brawler, G-Bike, and Chocobo Racing, are in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth 2. Others improve upon their remake versions, while still more are completely new to Rebirth. We've even fleshed out some of the mini-games that were featured as part of the original Final Fantasy VII's main scenario. Though this one is not in the original, I highly suggest you check out the card game, Queen's Blood. No matter where you are in the story, it's sure to both challenge and entertain you. Enjoy collecting all the cards and building your own unique decks.
He's planning to use the black materia, but I won't let that happen. He has to be stopped by a Cetra, and I'm the last.
While mini-games and map exploration are a big part of Rebirth's charm, there's more to it than just that. Rebirth provides a cinematic experience with even higher quality content and more of it than Remake.
Okay, that's nice.
This installment follows Cloud and company after they escape Midgard, up through to their arrival at the Forgotten Capital. We've taken painstaking care to depict how the group bonds during their journey, one that ultimately decides Aerith's fate. Once you finish Rebirth, I'm sure you'll agree that no other game makes you feel quite this close to its characters.
Not even him.
As for the graphics, Rebirth makes full use of the PlayStation 5 and its SSD, meaning we could use much higher resolution assets than we could in Remake. And they will still load in the blink of an eye. Maintain a 60 FPS frame rate with performance mode. Or prioritize 4K resolution with graphics mode. Whichever you prefer, Rebirth has you covered. Each character interacts with the world in their own way. Barrett shoots objects. Yuffie swings across gaps. Tifa has her grappling gun. Red can climb along walls. Kate Sith grabs and throws items.
Nice.
And Aerith manipulates the life stream. Whatever challenges you face, your teammates will be ready to help you overcome them. Now for the music. We wanted to pay respect to the original FF7's tracks, but also challenge ourselves by matching the feeling of each scene, which resulted in some truly innovative arrangements. Like, for example, the following.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Gänsehaut.
How was that? If you enjoyed what you heard, we recorded well over 400 new tracks for this game, so there's plenty more where that came from.
Thank you for choosing Bronco Cruises. We sincerely hope you enjoyed your trip with us.
Your party's bonds aren't just reflected in the story, but through gameplay as well. The choices you make throughout your adventure will change the way your comrades feel towards Cloud.
Yeah. At least I made that promise to you.
These feelings affect who will join you on a date in a gold saucer. Something I'm sure many of you are excited about. In fact, even allies who weren't available in the original FF7 can now accompany you, provided you play your cards right. The saucer is packed with many incredible sights to see and things to do. So your outing there will no doubt be a highlight of the game. Already have someone who you'd like to go with?
You first.
Cloud?
Well, we hope they feel the same way too. Your companions will share a bond not only with Cloud, but with each other as well. Your party level, a numerical expression of this bond, will increase as you overcome challenges.
I'm going to accompany you.
The higher this level, the more skills will become available in your character's folios, a mechanic new to Rebirth. By unlocking the skills etched in these tomes, your characters will grow stronger and learn new synergy commands. Part of what makes Rebirth's combat so fun is all the different character combinations. Switch up your team to fit the situation, or even your mood. Every possible party combination has its own unique synergy commands. So once you find characters that work for you, focus on tweaking their skills to match your combat needs. And don't be afraid to experiment. You can reset your folios at any time. With new characters and synergy commands at your disposal, Remake's satisfying hybrid of action combat and strategic planning has been made even more dynamic and engaging. We can't wait for you to experience all this and more in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on PlayStation 5.
本作のクリエイティブディレクターの野村哲也です。いかがだったでしょうか。広大な世界で描かれるクラウドたちの物語にどうぞご期待ください。最後になりましたが、皆様に重要なお知らせがあります。本日よりファイナルファンタジー7リバースを先行してプレイしていただける体験版を配信いたします。この体験版では物語の重要なポイントとなるニブルヘイム事件が収録されており、クラウドやセフィロスを操作することができます。さらに今回の体験版では発売までの間にアップデートが入り、ジュノンエリアの一部を探索できる追加デモが開放されます。本作の特徴である自由度の高いエリア探索を体験してください。詳細な情報は公式サイトや SNS をご確認ください。ぜひこの豪華な体験版をお楽しみいただきつつ、本作の発売をお待ちください。
デモ Das war's.